Okay, so welcome back. Nice to see both of you, Kim, Elaine, for another Art of Lingo live session. So yeah, let's start off as usual by having a look at today's quote, which always gets it's in the right mood, leads into the daily lesson. So I'll just share my screen if Kim can read the you can read the quote. So just going to share my screen with you. Okay, so if you can read the headline quote from Fyodor Dostoyevsky, who was a famous Russian novelist. For us to kick it off, Kim.
The mystery of human existence lies not in just staying alive, but in finding something to live for.
Yeah, great quote by Dostoevsky. He's speaking about the most fundamental need of every human being, just to find a worthy purpose to live for. It's what Viktor Frankl, he was in the Holocaust in World War II, called man's will to meaning, which is the basis for what he founded, a kind of therapy called logotherapy. Logos means meaning. So it was the third Viennese school of psychotherapy that postulates that the search for meaning is the primary motivational force for human beings. So if you know a bit about psychology, Freud came along, he kind of founded psychotherapy, and his idea was that human beings are motivated by pain and pleasure, right? So they desire pleasure, they avoid pain. And on one level, that's true. But Viktor Frankl said, there's a deeper level. Another guy called Alfred Adler, this was the second Viennese school of psychotherapy, talked about power. It's all about power and control. And, there's also some validity in that theory because human egos are notorious for trying to get power, to manipulate, to control others, to control the environment. But Viktor Frankl, through his pretty horrific experience in the Holocaust, came to realize. So just to give you an idea of what he went through, right? He had quite a nice career. He was a young man in his 20s. He just got married. He had a family in Austria. He had a wife, and all of that got taken away, right? So his whole family were murdered, including his wife. He didn't know whether they'd been killed or not because they'd been taken to other camps. His entire life, everything, his career, his family, his home life, all really gone. And he's now in this horrendous, situation in these concentration camps, which, the conditions were appalling. Very little food, just, at any point you could die because if a guard didn't like you, they could just shoot you. There's no respect for human life. But what he decided was that this was going to be his test. He was going to survive this, and he was going to come out of this stronger, and he was going to write a book that he started thinking about before he went in. But this helped him formulate his ideas into this philosophy called logotherapy. And he wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, which has been a bestseller. It's sold over 60 million copies worldwide. One of the best books I think I've ever read, where he really talks about this will to meaning. He brings in the philosophy in the second part of it, but in the first part he tells a very powerful story, and the combination of those two things in one book is incredibly powerful. So highly recommend reading that. Anyway, so to try and satisfy this strong force that drives every person to find fulfillment by finding meaning in life, the ego or belief in separation has invented many purposes and goals, but none of them is truly worthy of our minds because none of them will last. So the ego says, well, you'll find meaning in a special relationship, or you'll find meaning in a career, you'll find meaning in possessions, in money, in various activities, hobbies, in substances. You'll find meaning in all kinds of things outside of you. And we pursue them. Many people pursue them until, their dying day. But they're never going to give us a true sense of meaning because they're not true. They're illusory. So the word value can be applied only to what is permanent, i.e. it's eternal. What is temporary only has value to the extent that it helps us awaken from the dream of time to an awareness of the eternal, as Yeshua explains in this quote from section 4.1a of the Manual for Teachers, which is about the development of trust, which he teaches his version of the hero's journey of awakening. So Elaine, if you can read that quote kindly.
It takes great learning to understand that all things, events, encounters, and circumstances are helpful. It is only to the extent to which they are helpful that any degree of reality should be accorded them in this world of illusion. The word value can apply to nothing else.
Yeah, and that's from the beginning of the section on the development of trust. Maybe let's just go there, shall we? Where he talks about development of trust. So they must first go through this period of undoing that need not be painful, but it usually is so experienced. Kim, do you want to read that? Read the whole paragraph from the alternative.
Initially, I must undergo what seems like a period of undoing. This need not be painful, but it often feels that way. It seems that things are being taken away from me, and I will seldom understand at first that I am merely recognizing their lack of value. How can I perceive lack of value unless I perceive things from a different perspective? I'm not yet at the point where I can make the shift entirely internally. So the plan sometimes calls for changes in what seem to be external circumstances. These changes are always beneficial. Once I've learned this much, I will move on to the second stage.
So this is great learning to learn that actually these changes are always helpful. Whatever seems to be happening, especially if it seems to be a crisis, huge challenge, it's a drama. It's always helpful. It's always beneficial. Once I've learned this much, I move on. But that's, major learning. We're talking about Keith Kavanaugh is a well-known course teacher, and it took him 8 years to learn this. Because we don't want to learn this. The ego doesn't want to learn this. And then he talks about, here's where the quote comes from. It takes great learning to understand that all things, events, encounters, and circumstances are helpful. Elaine, do you want to read number 2? Might as well read the whole paragraph in the alternative kindly.
I must then experience a period of sorting out. Is that the one? Or?
Yeah. Yeah, you're on the right track.
Right, and just continue. This is somewhat challenging because having learned that the changes in my life are helpful, I must now judge everything based on whether it increases or hinders this helpfulness. I will discover that many things I previously valued now obstruct my ability to apply what I have learned to new situations because I have valued the worthless. I will be hesitant to generalize the lesson for fear of loss and sacrifice. It takes great learning to understand that all things, events, encounters, and circumstances are helpful. It is only their helpfulness that gives them any degree of reality in this illusory world. The word value can apply to nothing else.
Yeah, and that's where the quote comes from, so you can see it in its full context. It takes great learning to understand that all things, events, encounters, and circumstances are helpful. And I don't think he's underestimating. He's saying it's a great learning accomplishment to know this, to learn this. So they're helpful because they help you to let go of your separate self, disidentify from it, and accept your true self, the Christ, back into your mind. That's why they're helpful. So the word value can apply to nothing else. It's only valuable if it's helping you and your mind to let go of the separate self. And there is no other word for value. The word value can apply to nothing else. Only that is valuable in this world. Nothing else is valuable at all. It's a very radically different way of looking at the world, isn't it? Very, very different compared with the ego. And so our job is to stay in this view, no matter what happens. And there can be all kinds of pain, suffering, sickness, death, disaster that can and do happen in this world. No matter what happens, it's all helpful because it's helping me awaken to my true self. Okay. And then the third stage, we may as well read that because the first three stages are difficult, and these may take many years to get through. As I said, Keith Kavanaugh took 8 years to get through to the first stage. So it takes time, but this is part of the hero's journey of awakening, is to go through these stages. Okay, and then number 3, you can read the third paragraph there about the third stage, Kim.
The third stage I must go through is a period of relinquishment. If I misinterpret this as giving what is desirable, I will experience great inner conflict. Few teachers of perfect love are completely spared this distress. However, there is no sense in distinguishing the valuable from the valueless if I don't take the next logical step. Therefore, this period of overlap is often when I feel compelled to sacrifice my best interests for truth. I haven't yet realized how utterly impossible such demand is. I can only learn this by actually letting go of my belief in the valueless. By doing this, I will learn that when I expected sorrow, I will find a joyful lightheartedness, and where I thought I was being asked to sacrifice, I will receive a gift instead.
Okay. What's he saying in that one?
That you have to let go of what's valueless. You basically have to let go of this world, even the good things, because it's all valueless, even though it might feel like a sacrifice.
Yeah. And initially we do. Oh, well, okay. So, truth is asking me to sacrifice what I value. It might be a special relationship. It might be attached to form, to money, to possessions, to a substance. Maybe I'm addicted to something. Whatever it is that I think is valuable in this world seems to have to be sacrificed to truth. And we struggle and we suffer because we still attached to that which we're now being called to let go of. Actually, if we really perceive it correctly, we would just see that it's valueless. There's no value, there's no meaning, so letting it go means nothing. But to our separate self, it means everything. Well, the separate self will struggle to let go because the separate self needs these attachments in order to exist. These are the karmic bonds that bind us into this world and cause us to come back time and time again. Okay, so those first three stages make sense. And give you a sense of this journey we're on. This is, as I said, Yeshua's version of the hero's journey of awakening. So then we discussed, in a recorded discussion, we just discussed how managing our mental and emotional state should be our number one priority and our only real purpose in life. Okay, so my only job is to look and observe what's going on, and if it's negative of truth, then I need to let it go. So to do this effectively, you must interpret everything that seems to happen in the dream world, especially the seemingly negative things, as helpful to your purpose of letting go of your ego or separate self and awakening to being your eternal self. Right? So everything is there. Its only purpose is to help you to let go of the separate self and accept your eternal true self back. And this is the Holy Spirit's reinterpretation of the world, so that everything you experience in this world serves your true purpose of awakening from the dream of being a separate individual self. That's the whole point of it. Right. So a big part of living this purpose is to be truly helpful yourself, which is beautifully phrased in this translated prayer from section 5A of chapter 2 of the text, entitled Special Principles of Miracle Workers. So Elaine, if you can read that quote, this is translated into an alternative language from the original to make it more helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Did the dogs need taking or is it not?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yeah, no problem there. No problem.
Did it need taking?
Oh, just a sec.
Okay, Kim, do you want to read it?
Sure, okay. I'm here only to be truly helpful. I'm here to represent the pure formless awareness of perfect love within me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because this awareness will direct me. I am content to be wherever it wishes, knowing it goes there with me. I will be healed as I let it teach me to heal.
Yeah, it's a lovely prayer, isn't it? I'm here only to be truly helpful. And so I
Yeah,
don't really have to worry what to say or do or where to go. It's just going to show me. This is describing a very surrendered, flowing way of being, and a very loving, kind way. So, okay, so how can I be truly helpful in every situation? Which then undoes the ego, because the ego is not asking how it can be helpful. The ego is saying, what's in it for me, right? The ego is saying, well, what can I get out of the situation? How can this help me, my being the separate self? Not how can I be truly helpful to others, truly helpful to God, to the awakening, to the at-one-ment. It just says, what's in it for me? It's the YFM channel. So this prayer just undoes that. If you really lived this prayer daily, it's going to profoundly change your mindset in your life, isn't it? So I also mentioned the importance of having a spiritual path and regular spiritual practice in life rather than limiting himself to forever being a spiritual seeker, seeking what Yeshua calls knowledge in A Course in Miracles, but never really going deeper into this truth of perfect oneness or love, which are really the only things we had to learn. And then also just talked about the win-loss program of the ego, the idea of sacrifice and limitation that is central to its thought system. The Rugby World Cup was happening at the time to illustrate this. So, in a competition like that, any of these contests, there's only one team and nation that ends up feeling completely happy with the outcome. Everyone else is disappointed and feels like they're losers at the end of the tournament, which can only be the ego's setup. That everyone's a loser except one nation. And you always have, I mean, the contrast. Yeah, you watch the emotions that play out on these pitches, these sports fields. The winners overjoyed, wow, wow, and the losers dejected, and it's such a contrast. Okay,
Yeah.
so in order for one team to feel good and one nation to feel good, someone else has to be feeling dejected and disappointed. It's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
it's just two sides of the coin, isn't it? It's like it's not a shared joy. It's like, no, we're ecstatic because we've just beaten you, and you're all glum and because we losers, and there's the duality of the ego. It can't just everyone be happy. So why do we invent games like this that someone has to win and someone has to lose? Someone has to feel bad and someone has to feel good because that's the ego's thought system. The ego's thought system based on sacrifice and loss. And so it says, well, you can't have winning without losing. It's not possible in the ego's thought system. Someone has to lose if someone wins. Just like we won our identity at the expense of God. So we lost out on love and peace and joy, but we got a separate self instead, right? So it's based on the same idea. Fundamentally the ego. We want a separate identity, but then at the cost of love. So we've sacrificed love and our true self to now be a separate self. So the idea of loss and sacrifice is absolutely entrenched in the ego's thought system. You'll never get away from that as long as you believe in the ego, which means that the ego's got to go. Otherwise, there's always going to be sacrifice and loss. That's what Yeshua's trying to teach us. Just let go of the ego, that entire thought system, because it's the only way of getting out of this idea of sacrifice and loss and all the pain and suffering it seems to cause. So yeah, we read the text reading from yesterday, creation and communication, which is a good section. Well, Phil asked a question about what abstract thinking is. Bali asked how the ego uses communication for its purpose of separation. Both of which I responded to. You can listen to the audio. Just I'll tell you briefly. Answered abstract thinking is really just pure awareness. When you go into abstract thinking, you're not thinking about form. You're not thinking subject-object thoughts. Oh, I perceive this object, and now I'm thinking about this object or person. Abstract thinking is, or just I rest in an awareness that's transcendent. And that awareness really doesn't think very much at all. It's not thinking dualistically. It's not thinking about this world. It takes us into a pure awareness, pure formless awareness, perfect love, as we call it. And Bali asked how the ego uses communication for its purpose of separation. So it uses communication, but to create separation. So someone, let's say, who's sowing dissent. I've known a couple of people like this, and wherever they went, they just spread separation. They just sowing seeds of separation. They'll tell someone, oh, you better watch out for that person. And then that person's like, oh, well, suddenly I'm wary, and I wasn't. And I remember when I started realizing what this woman was doing, I was like, wow, okay, she actually had me convinced for a bit. But then I started realizing what the game was. So, okay, so you this is what you do. You just sow these seeds of separation. So you communicate, but it's about sowing separation and dissension rather than love and harmony and unity. So that's how it uses communication to separate and create disharmony and create pain and suffering rather than for its true purpose, which is union. So it's a distorted purpose. Although communication is only possible because of unity, that's why it's in the word communication. It's the misuse of that now, to sow dissension and separation and a lot of pain and suffering. And eventually I was like, I have to separate myself from this woman because that's what she does. And I don't want to be um, hanging out with someone who does that, because then you've always got to be on your guard. And why would you want to hang around with someone who's just causing separation, which is pain and suffering and sickness and misery and death? And that's her intention. That's egoic. Um, so yeah, that's the answer to those two questions, and then we just close the session with a meditation and practice of today's lesson, which is I do not know what anything is for. Then your bonus video, so you can watch that. It was a good session if I recall, so definitely worth watching or listening to. Your bonus video today was a synopsis of what the Matrix movie is saying about the society and world in which we think we live. I listened to it again actually last night. It's really, really good. There was stuff I'd forgotten about, and it's really, really insightful, and really it brings in all of the major themes of the Matrix. It relates them to teachings of the major religions. Talks about Hinduism, Buddhism, Gnosticism, Christianity. Brings in connections to great philosophers like Immanuel Kant, and various well-known books and movies, such as Alice in Wonderland and The Wizard of Oz, and various movies that it refers to. All these references are there if you really look for them. Some of them more obvious than others. So definitely worth listening to or watching again even if you watched it last year. It will help you to see the profound message and connections with other spiritual teachings, philosophies, movies, and books that maybe you didn't see before. Okay, so that brings us to a lesson for today, which is, how do I actually make this bigger? Just magnify, there you go. Just magnify the image. It's good. Actually wanted to magnify the whole page, but never mind. Well, we can read it. So this is today's lesson 25. Zoom, that's what I wanted. So let's make it a bit bigger. Zoom it in. I do not know what anything is for. Doesn't need any translation. It's a very, very simple lesson, but nevertheless very profound. So if I don't know what anything is for, then I don't really know what I'm doing here. I don't have no consistent, true basis for my words and my actions. But yeah, let's read it. So, Lane, given you sent these to me, if you can read that bit about the koala.
Yeah.
It's quite a good illustration of this. Kindly.
We see everything in our environment as having the purpose of serving our separate self. That simply cannot be what its true purpose is. Our desires flow from our nature. Therefore, if we have forgotten what we are, we will also have forgotten what we really want. Imagine, for instance, that you become convinced that you are a koala. The desires you identified with at that point would be to climb up a eucalyptus tree and start eating its leaves, which happen to be poisonous to humans.
So any thoughts on that? What about the rest of it? Yet since we are not a
Oh.
koala.
Yet, since we are not a koala, as we move to serve the koala's needs, our real needs go unmet. What are a whole other order of being, in brackets, a shared being, yet we are convinced we are intelligent primates living on a rock in space, having, in quote marks, personal interests. How then can we not be deeply confused about what anything is for? And then it's just got this thing on the right there, a shared being.
Yeah, so we're one mind, we're part of the oneness. It's one being, one awareness. But we think we're an intelligent primate living on a rock going around this great ball of fire we call the sun. And our purpose here is to play out our personal interests. Horribly confused. If we think we're that and we're not that at all, then everything we think is going to be confused and wrong. The koala example is helpful because it's saying, well, if you thought you were a koala, you'd start, going up trees and trying to eat eucalyptus leaves, and that's not your purpose. That's not who you are at all. In fact, it would be poisonous to you. So a lot of the things we do then are actually toxic and poisonous to us, but our minds convinced us that this is in our best interests. But the mind is totally confused about what's in its best interest because it doesn't know what it is. It thinks, that we're intelligent primates living on this rock in space, going around the sun, and we have a short span of time, 70, 80 years, and life is about meeting our needs, meeting our desires, our needs, avoiding our fears, and then eventually you're going to die. And that's the purpose the ego's given our lives. But it's not the purpose at all. We're actually a whole other order of being. We're in truth pure awareness that has nothing to do whatsoever with the body, with the delusion that we're intelligent primates living on a rock somewhere in space, in a solar system, in a galaxy, just trying to find some kind of satisfaction and fulfillment. None of that's true. All of that is delusion. So none of the personal interests that we think we have in this delusion of being an intelligent primate living on a rock in space actually mean anything. So we have no idea what anything is then for. And then it talks about the let's actually come to this when we get there in the lesson. Okay, let's go forward in the lesson because I think paragraph 4 gets to that. So we'll go back there. All right, so let's read. Nothing much to translate here. I've just done some translations in the alternative because instead of seeing, I've used perceiving, really. That's the key translation in this section. So, Kim, if you can read paragraph 1 in the alternative, kindly.
Purpose is meaning. Today's idea explains why nothing you perceive means anything. You do not know what it is for. Therefore, it is meaningless to you. Everything is for your own best interests. That is what it is for. That is its purpose. That is what it means. It is in recognizing this that your goals become unified. It is in recognizing this that what you perceive is given meaning.
Okay. Now, what's he saying there?
So what we perceive it means is meaningless in the world in terms of our understanding of it. It's the true, or turning around the true perception or the real meaning of it is something that is actually for our best interests, if we know what that means. And that's, I think it's a reinterpretation by the Holy Spirit, which would be
Yeah.
in our
Of what your best
interests and
interests actually
talents.
are.
Yeah. And the connection with the brother, well, it doesn't say that, but it's recognizing that what we perceive is given meaning. So it's changing our perception of what it actually means to
Yeah.
its true meaning, rather than the meaningless meaning
Yeah.
that we currently,
Which is why the course starts, lesson 1. Nothing I see means anything. Because he's got to deconstruct the meanings we've given everything in order to replace it with the true meaning. So this course primarily is about meaning and purpose. That's what is the meaning of life then? What is the meaning of my life as a separate side, in this world? What is it really all about? And he's saying, when you actually have no idea. In these early lessons, remember the first part of the workbook is designed to undo your current perception of it. So ultimately, it does have a meaning, and the Holy Spirit will give us that meaning, the true meaning. But to get there, we have to disidentify from the meaning that we've given it currently. So nothing I see means anything is helpful in that regard. Once you've reinterpreted it and you've undone it, you go, well, actually, its only meaning is for forgiveness. It's there to help me to let go and find my true self. Now it does have a meaning and a purpose. That's true. But you're not going to get to that meaning and purpose until you've undone the false purpose that you've given it. Oh, the world is about meeting my separate needs. The world is for achieving something. The world is for giving me pleasure and avoiding pain. You have to undo all that in order to open to the idea of its true meaning. That really the world is just there to help you to let go of your separate self. That's the only purpose of the world. It's only there to help you to undo the false self concept that you have identified, that you think you are. And that's the only meaning that the world has, which is why Yeshua says forgiveness is the only function. Forgiveness is your only function. It's very, very simple, but to undo, you have to undo all of the ego's meaning to get to that simplicity. Which is why he's saying, this is what it is for. This is its purpose. That is what it means. This is recognizing this, that your goals become unified. Recognizing this is what you perceive as given meaning. When you really get it, say it's all about forgiveness. That's all I'm here to do, is to let go of my separate self. And the world is there to help me to do that. Now it starts to make sense. Now the pain, the suffering, the sickness, the death, the drama of this makes sense, because it's just about helping me to let go of a separate self. And I only do that when that separate self experiences pain and suffering. The separate self is happy and going along merrily. Well, why would it need to let go of anything? Yeah. So really, really, really important lesson. Very, very profound, very helpful. You understand it, and so fundamental, so simple, but so fundamental. What I love about the course, he's given us it in such a few words, one simple sentence. I do not know what anything is for. But that is just a massive undoing of everything that we've believed, that we valued in our lives, right there in that one simple statement. If you really get that, then the ego just collapses, and you will be in your true meaning and purpose, and be guided by the Holy Spirit.
So it's almost like
Okay, let's go on then, shall we?
Just saying, it's almost like a koan. So it's such a simple thing, because the words won't really, you won't get your answers from the conceptual. So it's taking you to the experience. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. And that's why we practice these lessons over and over again, because you read it, and the first time you read it, okay, I kind of get that. It's an interesting idea, but I don't really get it, if I'm honest with myself. And the second time you read it, maybe slightly deeper. Third time, you might be distracted and it doesn't really go in at all. The fourth year you read it, you might be in a state of personal crisis, and then it actually starts to really hit home. You go, actually, I don't really understand what all this is for, because my world's just deconstructing.
Yeah.
We went through the hero's journey, the stages of trust, and it's that when that deconstruction starts to happen, and all the meaning that you've given things starts to collapse, that's actually good. That means you're awakening. But it feels incredibly painful to the separate self, because it's attached to that meaning and that purpose. I remember when I came to the UK 10 years ago, and everything that I thought was just collapsing. It was really, really difficult, but I'm really, really pleased I went through that in hindsight, because that was the undoing of a false self-concept that I'd identified with over the last 40 odd years. That was now really, coming into question, and I had to really look at that and recognize it for what it was and let it go, and actually start to apply this course. Up until that point, honestly, I didn't have a clue what it was about. I could speak the words, some of the concepts. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But until you actually start to deconstruct your separate self and go through the pain of that, you have no idea what the course is really about. Okay, so let's go on to number 2. Elaine, if you could read that in the alternative kindly.
You perceive the world and everything in it as meaningful in terms of the goals of your separate self. These goals have nothing to do with your own best interests, because you are not a separate self. This false identification makes you incapable of understanding what anything is for. As a result, you are bound to misuse it. When you believe this, you will try to withdraw the goals you have assigned to the world instead of attempting to reinforce them.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, just wonderful, wonderful paragraph. There's so much in there, isn't there?
Mm. Mm.
So if you don't know who you are, then you're going to misperceive everything. You identify with a false self. That false self perceives in a certain way, but you're not that false self, and your perceptions are all wrong. As you said in the previous lesson, your perception is wrong. So therefore, you can't understand what anything is for. It's why the ego is so dense. Why human beings make the same mistakes over and over again. Even, seemingly intelligent people, just like, why are you doing that again? Because the ego doesn't want to see the truth. So then you're bound to misuse it. You're going to make the same mistakes over and over again until you understand this. But when you accept this, then you'll just go, well, none of these goals mean anything. I'm not going to try and reinforce them, because actually they don't mean anything, and they're never going to work, and they're never going to bring me any happiness. So I may as well just let them go. And then you're starting to make real progress. And the true meaning of life then reveals itself to you. The deeper meaning coming from spirit, being, reveals itself as you let go of these false goals and the false identification with the ego. And then it all starts to make sense. And then life can become meaningful and purposeful again. But there's a period of, I mean, we all have to go through it, of like, well, what's the point of any of it? Why would I stay here, one moment longer when it's all completely pointless and futile? And that feels quite painful. We've all been there. Elaine, I know you've been going through some of that.
Mm-hmm.
Kim, maybe to an extent, I've certainly been there. Like, what is the point of any of it? Why not just, get out, commit suicide now and just leave? We've all had those thoughts. But on the other side of that really dark night of the soul is awakening to your true purpose. Well, actually, the only purpose of life is letting go and to discover who I am, and then to express and extend that into the world is my joy. That's what I came to do. So let me do it as best I can, for the guidance of the Holy Spirit, for the rest of my life, and I will lead a truly meaningful, purposeful, fulfilling existence if I do that. And when I'm ready, then I'll leave, and the leaving will be as natural as the rest of the life that the Holy Spirit's helped me to live. But you got to go through the disidentification with the false self first. Otherwise, you'll never get to that true meaning. So these lessons are all about really getting you to collapse the ego. I read these, they're brilliant. The way he uses language, just the simplicity of it. This isn't complex. The language isn't complex, is it?
Mm.
Anyone can really understand this if you want to. Anyone who can read and write English could understand this. So then you wonder, why do people have such difficulty with the course? Because we don't want to understand. There's a part of us that just blocks this understanding, clinging on for dear life to its false identity, being the ego. Doesn't want us to learn the course. So then, the simplicity is actually ignored. We just can't see it. We can't see the wood for the trees. We read this, it doesn't really go in, it doesn't penetrate. Even, seemingly highly intelligent people, they can read this stuff and it just doesn't go in. You go, well, why not? You're intelligent. Surely, these words, it's not actually that complex. What he's saying is really simple. But it's because of what it's saying, it's so radical. The ego just puts up a wall of resistance. It doesn't want you to understand it. But we must understand it. So, we must press on and really work through these lessons. And we come back to them and we re-look at them. I think this is the 19th time. Yeah, I started this course in 2006. Yeah, pretty much every year I've done the workbook. So this is the 19th time I'm going through the workbook. And I'm still getting huge value from it, which is pretty extraordinary, really. That, something has that power to hold your interest. I don't know any other book that can do that. So, really, really brilliant lessons. And there's just, so much value in studying them and learning from them over and over again, which is why we do it as a daily practice. Okay, so number 3. I think this is Kim. You can read that. Another way of describing the goals you now perceive. Kim? Don't know what's happened to Kim. You there, Kim?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can
I'm
you read
here.
number 3? Another way of describing the goals.
Another way of describing the goals you now perceive is to say that they are all concerned with personal interests. Since you have no personal interests, your goals are really concerned with nothing. Therefore, in valuing them, you have no goals at all. And so you do not know what anything is for.
You do not know what anything is for.
Now, it's just where therefore, in valuing them, what is it that you're valuing? You're valuing, I think, valuing what's really there, that love and connection, which is nothing to do with those goals.
No. So your personal interest, right? There is no persona. The persona is false. That's the false separate self. So your personal interests that serve that separate self, because the separate self isn't real, it means the interests of the separate self also aren't real. So if you value them, you're valuing nothing. You're valuing an illusion. And so you do not know what anything is for. Just so profound. I mean, you read this lesson and you actually accept what he's saying. This is awakening. You just wake up and go, oh my God, I just actually have had no idea what anything is for my entire life. I think I've known. I thought I knew what everything was for, but actually it was just totally mistaken. And it's only the pain of life that makes me realize this. You know, the pain, the suffering, the trauma is necessary to make you realize this. Because if everything's going swimmingly in the ego's world, why would you ever read something like this and question? You wouldn't, would you? So everything's fine. It's great. You know, my personal interests are all being met. And, you know, everything's going swimmingly. Well, you know, why would I question it? It's when things go wrong that we question, which is precisely why they need to go wrong for you to awaken. When we understand that, then it all makes sense. Okay, the things going wrong, the pain, the suffering, the sickness, the death in life are necessary for my awakening and everyone else's awakening. Okay, now the lights start going on. Now you're like, okay, now it makes sense. Now actually I can be incredibly resilient in this world because I welcome these things. Instead of resisting them, going, this is terrible, I go, okay, this is good. Because this is helping me to wake up from a nightmare. This has helped me to discover who I really am and what life is really for. So bring it on. Okay, any other thoughts on that? So before you can make
it's
any
not a
sense,
it's such a
hmm?
juxtaposition. I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just explain it. What's the juxtaposition between the Holy Spirit and the ego?
Well, that's what it is really. But I mean, it's just that whole, I will not value what is valueless. Like, I'm not going to value the goals because it's actually has no meaning. It doesn't exist. But
Yeah.
but then, so you're really concerned with nothing. I think that's the whole, we're really concerned with nothing.
Yeah.
Mm.
Which is why they'll never satisfy us. You know, egoic goals never satisfy us for long because they're nothing. They don't mean anything. We try and find meaning and value in them, but in the end they'll fail us because they actually have no inherent meaning and value. And that becomes obvious once we've pursued them for long enough. So the disappointment of pursuing false goals is a necessary part of awakening, right? The disillusionment must precede enlightenment. You have to be disillusioned with the false goals and values of the world before you'll accept the truth. Which then means the pain, the suffering that you encounter in this world when what you value doesn't happen, your expectations aren't met, that's all necessary for the awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And then it starts to make sense. You know, okay, I can actually, I see the meaning now. I see what the true meaning of life is, and I see the true purpose. And now all the pain and the suffering and the misery and the sickness and the death, rather than going, oh my God, this is terrible. Why is this all happening to me and other people? Why is life so unfair and cruel? You go, no, it makes sense. I understand. And in fact, it has to be exactly this way in order to awaken. That's how it has to be. There's no other way. So the world is fulfilling its purpose exactly as it should. Everything is happening exactly as it should for my highest good, which is awakening. And now I'm in a state of surrender and acceptance. Do you see that? I'm not resisting life anymore saying this shouldn't be happening. I'm going, it absolutely should be happening because this is how I'm going to awaken to the truth of who I am. This is how I'm going to get out of here. Very, very, very simple. But to master this is a lifetime's work because we tend to resist. When things go wrong, We go, oh, they're gone sad, things are going wrong anymore. Why is this happening to me? Remember in the Matrix, things are going wrong, and the agents are coming for him, and he's in a room, and he's like, "Why is this happening to me? I didn't do anything." Actually, you've been searching for the truth your whole life, so you did. You were asking for this. But when things get difficult, then we go, no, why is this happening to me? It's really, really well done, that scene. Okay, so then he says, Elaine, if you want to read this one.
Yeah. Before you can make sense out of the exercises for today, one more thought is necessary. At the most superficial levels, you do recognize purpose, yet purpose cannot be understood at these levels. For example, you do understand that a telephone is for the purpose of talking to someone who is not physically in your immediate vicinity. What you do not understand is what you want to reach them for. And it is this that makes you contact with them meaningful or not.
Let's go back up to this one, which is directly connected to that. Everything is a means for returning home. So Kim, if you want to read that.
Okay. Everything is a means for returning home. Purpose cannot be understood at superficial levels. A telephone is for joining with a brother or extending messages of love, healing, and comfort. A meal is for energizing that we may effectively do our part in God's plan, following his guidance. A computer is for learning and teaching salvation. A pen is for writing messages of healing for another. A situation is for learning forgiveness, or for learning that my safety lies in God, for expressing love, for undoing pain by choosing anew. A hand is for extending miracles. These are my true desires, which come from my true nature and which bring me real joy.
So this is the reinterpretation of all these things, common things we experience, telephones and eating a meal and a computer, pen, any situations for learning forgiveness or letting go. Hand is to help and bless and extend miracles. And so we reinterpret. Now these things have their true meaning. Now our telephone is, okay, yeah. Now we have, not telephone, we have Zoom and we have other communication mechanisms. But think of what we're doing now. We're communicating via these devices called computers or phones or tablets. And this is for learning and teaching salvation. We're using these devices for what, they're really meant for, which means that they have a holy purpose, their true function. We can misuse those devices. People use them for all kinds of other things. And then that's a misuse of its purpose. But if we bring it into alignment with its true purpose, then everything becomes holy. Then everything does have meaning and purpose. And we can feel quite inspired about it all. Where we have to let go of the false purpose that we gave it initially. And part of that undoing is going through these lessons and doing the exercises so that we start to question and ultimately undo those false beliefs. Okay, then while we're up here, as we do this, so Elaine, if you can read this one about the centaur.
Yeah. You as God's son have been on the centaur for years. In fact,
Just
you
the
never.
top bit is what you missed this, but you as God's son have your own needs, only needs.
Oh, yeah. You as God's son have your own needs, holy needs that go against the needs of the ego and the body. And you as God's son have been on the centaur for years. In fact, you never get off. After all this time, you feel completely identified with both parts of the centaur. The ego is
Centaur is a mythical creature that was half man, half horse. So the writer has just used that to illustrate the ego. So the ego is the top half, and the horse is the body. Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, the ego is seeking its own glorification, constantly charging around, puffing itself up, and putting out all the fires of negative opinion about it. And the ego and the body are allies. Their whole claim to existence is that they are integral parts of you, when in truth they are not part of you at all. And on this here, the body, all it wants to do is eat, lay in the sun, and have sex.
It was actually the mind that's identified with the body, because the body actually has no desires of its own. But you get what the writer's trying to say.
Yeah.
The mind that's identified with the body just wants to eat, lay in the sun, have sex. And, that's a lot of people's fantasy. Oh, you're going to go away on honeymoon. You're just going to eat lots of food. You're going to have go to the beach and lay in the sun, have lots of sex. And this is its idea of a good time and the paradise. And the honeymoon lasts for 2 weeks. And you do that, and even that's going to get boring after a while, isn't it? Like after 2-3 weeks of that, you're going to go, okay, well, that's not really doing it for me anymore. Honeymoon's over, and life carries on, and then after that, the challenges really start. Because now that the person that you are having a honeymoon with, and it's just amazing, and this person is the most amazing thing you've ever met. Now all of a sudden you live with them, and it's like, oh, actually they've got some flaws, and they're issues, and I'm arguing with them, and there's a lot more to this than just eating, laying in the sun, and having sex, which is what the ego wants you to believe. Yeah. So again, quite well done. I quite like these illustrations. And then what the Course says about what things are for. So Kim, if you can read that. These are just some quotes from parts of the text and the workbook. Kim, can you read read these quotes? Kim, are you there? Maybe Kim's dropping off. All right. Kim, you there?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
here.
Are you dropping off? But we'll just well, we nearly finished with the lesson. We'll do a practice of meditation, we'll call it. So yeah, if you can read those quotes.
What the Course says about what things are for. The acceptance of that one meant by everyone was only a matter of time. In fact, both time and matter were made for this purpose. Time is a teaching device and a means to an end. It will cease when it is no longer useful in facilitating learning. To the Holy Spirit, the world is a place where you can learn to forgive yourself. To the Holy Spirit, the world is a place where you learn to forgive yourself what you think of as your sins. The Holy Spirit sees the body only as a means of communication. I will look upon the world as it is and see it as a place where the Son of God finds his freedom. What is your brother for? You do not know. He asks for help in every dream he has, and you have help to give him.
Yeah, so there, the Course is saying the point of the world, the purpose of the world is to help you let go of your separate self and free your mind from the delusion of being a separate self. And if you see it correctly, then it fulfills its purpose perfectly, because it's continuously challenging that separate self and causing you to experience the pain and the suffering of being identified with the separate self, so that you can ultimately see it for what it is and let it go. And that's the purpose of the world, and it does it perfectly. When you can accept that, then life suddenly has some meaning and purpose. You go, okay, I get it. And I understand, what it's about now, so I can play the game of life correctly. But if I don't understand what's really going on here, I'm always going to be confused and I'm always going to be struggling and suffering, which is, the position of most people. By and large, humanity hasn't awoken, so most people are struggling and stressing, straining, striving, struggling, suffering, dying, and not really understanding what it's all about. So only a teaching like this that will teach them what it's all about. Which is why spiritual teachings exist, because there is a great need for this kind of learning. The Course does brilliantly is it makes it so clear and so explicit that anyone can get it. You just have to have a basic command of English and you could understand this. And then it gives you these lessons to actually practice thinking in this way. Mind training. Say, okay, well, there's a very unfamiliar way of thinking, but let's start practicing it with these lessons. Very, very simple, short exercises to start with that you can start practicing a different way of thinking. Okay, so that's number 4. Lane, if you can read number 5 kindly for us, and then we'll go into the actual practice of the lesson.
Yeah. It is crucial to your learning to be willing to give up the goals you have established for everything. The recognition that they are meaningless, rather than good or bad, is the only way to accomplish this. The idea for today is a step in this direction.
So he's saying it very clearly. You have to give up all the goals. It says at some point in the text, I think this course requires that you question every single value that you've ever held, that you do hold, in order to understand it. It's simple, but it's very radical. The mind doesn't want to do this. Give up the goals you've established for everything. Wow, okay, so that's everything I value, everything I believe is real and meaningful and purpose and defines me and gives me some kind of joy and pleasure, but it also, causes me pain and suffering. All of that's got to go. And this idea just takes us in that direction. In a very kind of Zen-like way, doesn't it? What I like about these lessons. They're very, very short and sweet and simple, most of them. They get a bit longer at the end of the workbook. But then we're in a different phase. But these first ones are so short and sweet and simple. And he's done that intentionally, because if it's too long and complex, we just won't get it. Short, simple, sweet ideas are how we're going to learn this course. Okay, so there's the practice. We're just gonna, I'll take you into a meditation, and then I'll get you to practice this with your thoughts. You're going to consider thoughts, ideas, situations going on first, practice it with those, and then when you come out of it, we'll practice it with the things in the room around you, as it's suggesting. Okay, so remember, as within, so without. So practicing internally is just as effective as practicing it externally. In fact, maybe even more so, because you have a relationship with the situations and people going on in your life, even if they're not physically present. I'm going to ask you to just look at those and say, well, I don't really know what this person is for. I don't really know what this situation is for. I don't really know what anything is for. Whatever's coming up in your current experience, use the idea, and then when we come out of it, we'll practice it in the way it's written here. Okay, sound good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a meditation on today's lesson 25 of the workbook. So just making yourself comfortable. You're sitting in a chair, just sitting comfortably. Your feet shoulder width apart, your back straight. Cup your hands in your lap, or put your hands out on your thighs, palms facing upwards. Close your eyes. Start off with a nice deep breath in through the nose. Breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. Subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Pause at the top of the inhale. Take another sip of air in. And just scan your mind, notice any thoughts about anyone or anything, any situation, person, place, event. Maybe there's something you're worried about. Maybe you're dwelling on the past. Maybe it's a situation in your life that's causing you some issues, a person, whatever comes to mind. So just look at it, and as you breathe into it, just say, I do not know what this, and then name it. This person, name the person by name or the situation. Describe it briefly. Is for. I do not know what this, whatever it is for. And exhale. Have a sense of letting go of your attachment to the person, place, event, or situation. That attachment is defined by the meaning that you give it. You've given it a meaning and a purpose that it doesn't really have. I do not know. Consider another situation. I do not know what this other situation, name it, is for. Breathe in again. So as you breathe in, you just invite it in. This is an invitation to a higher awareness to come in. Invite it in, just look at it. Remind yourself that I don't know what this is for at all. And then exhale to help you let it go. Have a sense of just exhaling it out, blowing it all away. The breeze of your breath to the nothingness that it really is. Move stomach into the spine, expel the last remaining air out. Consider another idea, thought, situation, person, place, event. Maybe it's a worry you have about the future. Maybe it's a grievance over the past. And just say, I do not know what this, whatever it is for. As you breathe in again. Do not know what it is for. So if I don't know what it's for, I must be misperceiving it. Giving it a meaning it doesn't have. That meaning is causing me to suffer. And my suffering is as illusory as the meaning I've given it. It's the kind of logic we have to learn to practice. So just blow it away. If you don't know what it's for, and none of its meaning is true, then there really is no pain and suffering, sickness and death. It's all undone. It's all gone. And you just blow it all away. The breeze of your breath. Do not know what this is for. Notice a sense of peace, contentment, stillness coming over you. Great peace in this idea. When you let go of your false meanings, false purpose you've given the world, then what underlies that is the truth, which is still calm, peaceful, happy, joyful. So just allow yourself to experience that stillness, that peace, that calm, that joy, that love for a couple of minutes of deep silence. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do, nothing else to think about. Just breathe, relax, be still, and surrender into that stillness. Nowhere else to go, nothing else to do. Absolutely nothing else to think about. Breathe, relax. Observe the breath flowing in and out of your nostrils. Focus on that to help you to get involved with your thoughts, just to be able to stay detached from your thoughts. Thoughts come and just zoom out of them, just watch them. Come and they go, they shift and they change. Cloud patterns. Ever shifting, ever changing, but clouds have nothing to do with the sky. Sky is the truth. It's permanent, it's eternal. The clouds are shifting, changing, ephemeral forms that don't stay the same moment to moment. They're always changing. The rest in the blissful being of this awareness. The world is meaningless. The world as you perceived it before is meaningless. But actually true meaning and purpose is still here, underlying it. And you are that meaning and purpose. So you can just rest in the awareness of that meaning and purpose right now. Any thoughts come up? You want to give them meaning, you want to give them value, some kind of purpose. Remind yourself that I do not know what this, and name it, situation, person, place, event, circumstance is for. Do not know what this, or whatever it is, anything else that comes up. Do not know what it is for. Exhale out. Just blowing it all out with the breeze of your breath to nothingness that it really is. It's going, gone. Pull our stomach into the spine. And so you're just going to sink deeper and deeper. It's going deeper and deeper with each breath. To this still, calm, quiet, peaceful state of mind. State of mind. Not illusions in which only the truth is true. And rest in the beautiful, blissful being of this for a couple of minutes of deep silence. So just gently coming back now. You're going to bring your awareness back into the body and the world via the breath and the senses. So on the count of 3, you can open your eyes. 1, just breathing in. Noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises. And the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Pause at the top of the inhale. Smile. Scan your mind. Noticing any thoughts, emotions, related body sensations going on. Remind yourself as you breathe into it that I do not know what this is for. No idea what its purpose really is. But in that recognition, you start waking up to the true meaning and purpose of it. So exhale out on the count of 2. You just blow it out. Imagine it's leaving you like dark cloud or black smoke out of your mouth, out of your body, out of your energy system. It's going, gone. Pull the lower stomach into the spine. Expel the last remaining air out. And just rest here in deep peace and stillness. And count to 2, just noticing the body, again, the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, your feet touching the ground, noticing what you're feeling with your hands, touching. Maybe there's a subtle flow of air on your skin, notice that. Breathe in again, notice the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. What are you smelling, tasting perhaps? Notice what you're touching, feeling, and notice what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Just noticing all these things from this very still, calm, surrendered state of mind, a state of mind without illusions, where you've let go of all the false meaning and values that you've given the world, and what's there is just the truth. I'm going to anchor this feeling, this connection to the truth in to awareness. Set the intention to stay here for the rest of the evening, on into tomorrow. So it is said, so it is done. Now on the count of 3, just open your eyes. So look around. And just take a couple of minutes just to practice the lesson in its external aspects. So just repeat today's idea. I do not know what anything is for. As you look around the room, just let your eyes rest on whatever happens to be there, whether it's near or far, seemingly important or unimportant, whether it's a human being or non-human. Just let your eyes rest on it and then say to yourself, I do not know what this name, the object, the person is for. Say this quite slowly. Don't shift your eyes as you say it. Once you've said it, then move on. Look at something else. And very slowly, deliberately, whatever your eyes happen to rest on. So I do not know what this computer is for instance. So look at the computer. Or further afield, I do not know what this wall is for. Look up at the ceiling. I do not know what the ceiling is for. Look at your body. I do not know what this body is for. This hand is for. And so on. Do that for another half a dozen things, very slowly and deliberately. No stressing, there's no rushing. It's just very slow, deliberate. Looking at everything, practicing this idea, applying it. I do not know what this is for. As you look at it. And then finally, just to conclude the exercise, as you look around, say, I do not know what anything is for. And that just kind of sit with you. You don't have to fully understand these ideas, just let it sort of percolate into your mind on a deeper level, and you'll know that it's going in there. You're actually reprogramming your fundamental operating system, life operating system, which has been the ego as in a flop, and you're reprogramming it into something that's going to be very helpful for you. So that brings us to the end of the exercise and the meditation, and also the lesson and today's session. So all coming to a close. It is 12 midnight your time, Kim, so probably want to get to bed. But thank you for joining, and see you again. See you
Yes, thank
next
you,
week
Jen.
sometime.
Yeah,
Yeah. All right.
all right.
So
Good night, Jenna.
yeah, go well.
Thank
All right.
you.
Namaste.
Thanks. Namaste. Bye.
Okay, so that is a wrap for today. If you enjoyed the session, then a couple of things you can do to take your journey further. Why not go to lifebuild.com, and you can sign up there to receive some free information. I send up the daily quote I shared at the beginning, my comments on it, some of the resources, the daily lesson from a Course in Miracles workbook, along with a short meditation to help you practice it, and an invitation to join these live calls. So all of that available at lifebuild.com. Check it out. Sign up. You will need Telegram on your device to access it all, but that is free download on the Google Play Store or the App Store, depending on whether you have an Android or Apple device. And you can also subscribe to the channel. If you enjoyed this, I'll be going live three or four times a week. There's going to be a lot happening this year, relaunching the program, so be sharing some videos, and we might actually go up to 5 live sessions a week. So yeah, hit the subscribe button, and you'll be able to access the live sessions whenever I go live on the live stream or the recording. So yeah, hope you enjoy that, and hope to catch you on the inside of one of these sessions or Telegram group soon. Thanks for watching or listening, and namaste. Means the true self in me acknowledges and honors that same true self in you. I'm wishing you much love, peace, and joy in that self, which is the Christ in you and me.